So we are here in Melbourne for another roadshow episode at the ANZSIL Gender and Sexuality and International Law workshop on feminist approaches to international law in the time of authoritarian capitalism. So we've going to be chatting with all the international lawyers we can at this workshop. And I'm here with Laura. Laura, do you want to kind of introduce yourself, where you're at and what you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, hi, I'm Laura. I'm here from Germany, Hamburg, and I am doing my PhD in Hamburg, and I am working on European Court of Human Rights jurisprudence that settles at the intersection of family issues and gender diversity, and I'm performing a frame theory, a frame analysis there.
So what does that mean for those of us who are not across European jurisprudence and have never used frame analysis? So basically I'm looking at cases that applicants bring against various of the 47, now 46 European states that are part of the Council of Europe. And I am looking at how gender diversity or gender identity is framed by the court. So what kind of stereotypes and cisnormativity and heteronormativity, as well as othering, might be perpetuated by the jurisprudence of the court. Fantastic. And then why are you looking particularly at family issues with this question?
Yeah. So I'm looking at family issues because so the court already awarded a right to determine one's own gender identity in many cases. So what I'm really interested in is if states are already within that framework of allowing someone to determine their own gender identity, how does the state really follow through with it? How does the court follow through with it? So what kind of secondary thoughts appear?
Fantastic. That sounds like a really interesting doctoral thesis, and I really look forward to reading it when it's finished. When you're not working on your doctorate in international law issues, what do you like to do to relax, unwind, and escape from the international law hellscape we're facing?
I didn't know you were asking about relaxing, so I had something else in mind.
Well, I mean, you don't have to relax. Relaxing is not required.
So something that I really like to do and that I know is an issue in Melbourne here as well, as far as I'm seen, is I'm really trying to do stuff back at home that copes with the housing crisis, because I know you have one in Melbourne right now. We very much have one.
Most of Australia.
Yeah. We very much have one in Hamburg as well, so I'm really trying to bring healthcare to people that live on the streets, and I'm driving a big truck doing it, which is like really, for me personally, my micro-feminist
fantastic
energy that I'm bringing to the table in trying to parallel park that huge thing.
Fantastic. That's really important work, and really fantastic that you're doing that. So for our final roadshow question, wombat, echidna, platypus, koala, emu, or kangaroo? Which one and why?
Oh my god. What did we start with? Wait, how many were there?
Wombat, echidna, emu, koala,
a wombat,
kangaroo,
that's
and
easy.
platypus. Wombat?
Yeah.
You're going to pick a wombat?
Yes, because of their poop.
Yep, the square poo?
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's as good a reason as any. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on this Call to the Bar roadshow, and I hope you enjoy the workshop.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Alright, so we're still here at the ANZSIL GSIL workshop. We're out at the workshop dinner, and I'm with Holly. Holly, you've been on the pod before, but do you want to kind of remind our listeners as to who you are and what you're working on presently and what your paper is for this workshop?
Okay, I'm a PhD candidate at Deakin University, and you're one of my supervisors.
Guilty as charged.
And the wonderful and talented Alice Witt is my other supervisor. I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Western Australia Law School, so I wear two hats. This at the GSIL workshop, I'm going to be presenting sort of a digression from part of the PhD, where I'm asking, do feminist judges need feminist litigants? Because my PhD is on feminist strategic litigation, and so I'm tying that up with the whole issue of feminist judging.
Fantastic. And so where are you at in the PhD then as you're going forward?
I'm a little more than halfway through in terms of time. I'm probably a little less than halfway through in terms of the amount I've
There was no
accomplished.
judgment here, listeners, on Holly. Holly is going to be the easiest PhD I ever supervised. So there was no judgment.
But I'm enjoying going down all the blind alleys, digressions, reading all sorts of things I never had thought would be relevant to my work before. I spent most of a month reading international relations literature on communities of practice in June.
Yeah, I also made you go and read about statehood formation as a taxonomy. So yes, there's all sorts of weird and wonderful digressions that you've taken on this journey.
Well, that's good because a PhD is really focused, so having those digressions, and this is not obviously relevant, but it is relevant because of this reason, is one of the most enjoyable parts.
Yeah, it really is. I do miss the freedom that I had to just read and write during my PhD, so I totally understand that. So outside of your many international law and other legal hats that you wear, what are you doing to relax and unwind and enjoy yourself and enjoy life apart from a glass of rosé?
Glass of rosé. One thing I really am an advocate for is parkrun. Parkrun is a worldwide phenomenon where you can go and do a 5-kilometer run or walk on a Saturday morning with people of varying abilities, athletic abilities, and it is my third place.
Fantastic. And now for our final question for the this little roadshow episode: echidna, wombat, platypus, koala, emu, or kangaroo? Which one and why?
Ooh. I'm sorry you didn't include quokkas.
Okay, well tell me about the quokka and why the quokka.
Quokkas, who mostly live in Rottnest Island off Western Australia, are described as the world's happiest animal. I don't know whether that's actually true, but they are certainly the smiliest. And they're a small marsupial, and they look like pudgy, happy wombats or koalas, but with smaller ears.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this roadshow episode.
Happy to speak to you.
All right, I am here with Sophie. Sophie, thanks for coming on this ANZSIL GSIL Call to the Bar Roadshow episode. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell our listeners what it is that you are working on, and either currently or generally?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Tamsin. My name is Sophie Rigney. I'm a senior lecturer in law at RMIT Law School, and I have trained, I guess, first as an international criminal lawyer, so I worked in practice at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia for several years before doing my PhD in international criminal law. And these days I'm focusing mostly on ideas of abolition, so penal and carceral abolition in relation to international criminal law, so sort of critiquing the system of international law and its demand for punishment through imprisonment and its structure around carceral ideas. So that's sort of what I'm doing at the moment.
And I would like to just say that I've read some of your work on this, particularly your special issue piece on the case for criminal law abolition. And I also saw an honours thesis that used that piece as a basis for let's create more crimes in the ICC statute. What other wild ways have you seen your work on criminal law abolition in international criminal law used in ways that clearly missed the point?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people are actually just still really dedicated to the idea of this system for various reasons, and we have a real emotional pull to it, and particularly at this time where we're seeing such I was about to say unbelievable atrocities, but I hate that formulation actually, because of course they must be believed.
Well, and this is where I've often said I can't do international environmental law because I can understand how a society gets to a point of a genocide. I can't understand corporate greed.
Yeah.
So it's really believable and sadly too believable.
Yes, correct. That's right. So I think many of us are still wanting accountability, and I think where I sit is that we need accountability, but accountability doesn't need to come through a criminal law system which is itself inherently violent, and I don't think necessarily will unpick the cycles of violence that we all want so desperately to end. So I think sometimes, people are always going to read your work through their own ideas, emotional reactions. There's nothing that you can do once pieces are out in the world. I can't necessarily think of particular examples of where my work has, I've read an article dealing with my work and I've been like, oh, that's not what I meant, but I think for sure that there would be examples out there,
Yeah, and look, I'll join you in the criminal law abolition. Law will never give us justice. Let's stop looking to it as a justice vehicle.
For sure, that's right.
So when you're not being an international criminal lawyer and criminal law abolitionist, what do you do to relax, unwind, enjoy life?
Yeah, great question. I look, a bunch of things. I've got 2 small children, so I spend a lot of time with them. I spend a lot of time walking around the streets of Melbourne in pursuit of the best pastries the best coffees, love those things. I love to go swimming at outdoor pools. I love reformer Pilates and yoga. And I have a side hustle Instagram business where I sell pre-loved books. So I go and source pre-loved books.
Okay, we'll have to put a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah.
So, and our final question for the roadshow. So, wombat, echidna, platypus, emu, koala, or kangaroo?
Okay.
Which one and why?
I think platypus. I love platypi. There are quite a few, or there's a couple of famous ones that have taken up living in the Hobart rivulet. So I grew up in Hobart, and you can go down to the rivulet and watch the platypus splashing around, and I love that.
You get them in the river through Queanbeyan as well.
There you
I've seen them once or twice walking in Admiral.
And I just think they're magical, right? This funny little creature that goes underwater and is furry and has this funny bill, and I just think they're very cool.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Call to the Bar Roadshow episode.
Thanks, Tamsin.
And I'm here on day 2 of the GSIL workshop with Caitlin. Caitlin, do you want to introduce yourself to the Call to the Bar listeners and tell us what you're working on at the moment?
Sure, thanks Tamsin. My name's Caitlin Biddulph. I'm a lecturer in International Relations at the University of Technology, Sydney. What brings me here today and yesterday was a paper on the exceptional and also the common site of international courts and how they can be forms and sites of gendered violence, looking at the novel intimacies to read these themes. But more broadly, my research areas are international justice and transitional justice through queer perspectives.
Yeah, and you do a lot of work on the nature of legal violence within international courtrooms. Do you want to kind of very briefly kind of sum up kind of what that's all about for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. This might be difficult to sum up, but I'll try. Essentially, what I argue in my doctoral research, which is now a book, is that international law and international criminal courts and tribunals are sites of violence, and that they represent testimonies of violence and atrocities, but also international law and mechanisms are agents of violence, and they do this in ways by infantilizing victims, demonizing perpetrators in quite pejorative, civilizational, racialized ways, and they use gender and sexuality in quite cis-heteronormative ways. And so I see this as a form of violence that international law wields.
Fantastic, and as someone who has read Caitlin's work a fair bit, I can say go read it. It's really excellent, and if you hadn't considered how the law is in and of itself a form of violence, this is a really good entry point to start thinking about that issue. So when you're not looking at the violence of courts and in the international system, what do you do to relax? What do you do to enjoy yourself?
Yeah, good question. I'm a big fan of reading, of fiction reading, so maybe that explains the paper that I presented at this workshop yesterday. So I love literary fiction and contemporary fiction. Gotten into audiobooks too, so I'm actually now reading a lot more because I can listen to audiobooks on my commute, at the gym, on the drive home.
And the commute to UTS from anywhere in Sydney is awful.
Oh yeah, it's at least an hour each way.
Yeah. No, I did my undergrad there. I know it's awful. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Are you doing anything else apart from reading that you kind of think is noteworthy as a recreational pursuit?
I mean, probably really boring stuff, but I love TV and movies. I'm a big Formula One fan.
Oh, hey, okay.
I just came back from Singapore.
Is Oscar gonna get the world title?
I would love to, but I'm not sure. I think there's a bit of a bias happening at McLaren.
Yeah, look, I'm there with you on that.
But also, my number one is Lewis Hamilton. So.
You and me both. Team Lewis, all here for it. He was robbed in Abu Dhabi.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so now our last question. So, wombat, kangaroo, emu, platypus, koala, or echidna. Which one and why?
I actually have different ones.
Okay, go for it.
My thinking is wallabies.
Wallaby?
And quokkas. They're just very cute. And also, my parents' house, they have about a quarter of an acre of land, and they often have wallabies come into the backyard.
Awesome.
And they also have seen echidnas and stuff, but they're just very cute, and you can't get too close to them because they'll run off. So those are my two picks.
Awesome. Thanks so much for chatting with Call to the Bar.
Thank you.
Alright, so I am here for the continuation of this ANZSIL GSIL Workshop Roadshow episode, and I'm speaking with Adrian. Adrian, do you want to introduce yourself to our Call to the Bar listeners and tell us what you're working on and what your paper here that you've just presented was about?
Yes. Hi, Tamsin. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Very excited to be here. I am a PhD candidate with La Trobe University, and I'm also their inaugural teaching fellow, which is pretty cool. And today at GSIL, I got to talk about an amazing project that has just come public, which is great. The Feminist Judges Project, Reimagining the ICC, and myself and my colleague Dr. Suzanne Varel spoke about our experiences basically pretending to be ICC judges and how we experienced that project. So it was great just to sort of debrief on what that actually entailed.
Yeah, and so what's your PhD on?
So I am radically remembering the Rome Statute.
Yep.
And I am focusing on the Australian delegation experience and also the gender provisions of that. So going back to 1998 and speaking to people who were active actually there to try and get a little bit of a behind the scenes look as to how we actually got the law that we did. So it's kind of, it's been good. It's been good so far, as all PhDs are. I'm midway, so, you know, just loving the data collection at the moment.
Oh yeah, that always takes 3 times longer than you think it will.
Yep, and you email people and they're like, absolutely, and then you don't hear from them for like 6 months.
Yeah, no, and there's like, I remember when I was in my MPhil, Angela Melville gave a masterclass on empirical methods, and she said, get your timeline for getting all of your data gathering done and then triple it.
Yep. 100%.
That was her absolute wisdom approach to doing anything empirical, is it takes 3 times as long as it should to get done. So I can tell you that as a supervisor, the thing that your supervisor is longing to hear is that you're sick of your PhD, because that means it will in fact be submitted soon.
Yes, and you know what, I think I will be fast approaching that very soon. But no, look, it is really good. I've got a great supervising team in Madeline Chiam and Kathleen Birrell, so it's great. I am loving it, but I am also ready to stop transcribing interviews and start getting into the meat of it.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Oh, like a 2-hour interview, I reckon it's taking me like 8 hours to transcribe.
That's pretty much on the money.
Yep. And I am too vocal. I've decided I'm too vocal in the interviews.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of me having to try and transcribe my, that's amazing. And then you just want to slap.
You actually can just omit those and say that it is an edited transcription where vocalizations that don't add to the conversation have been omitted from the transcript.
See, this is true, but I'm also doing the oral history method, and so I need to record all of it, including the ambient sounds, because it's part of my method.
Look, and that's fair. I was doing more sociological, semi-structured interview stuff, and never transcribing my own interviews again, even though it did get me used to hearing my own voice.
Oh, I sound horrific. I don't know that I'll be able to listen to this little snippet, but you know, I always think I sound like, you know, a candy-covered Barbie.
You know,
Barbies are people too.
Barbies are people too, and you know, I'm not here to, you know, shame anyone for their voice. So
I'm shaming myself, Tamsin. Come on.
Yeah, and I'm objecting to that. So. When you're not doing all of this work on the Rome Statute and reimagining ICC judgments, what do you like to do to relax and unwind?
I am a crocheter. I crochet the crap out of little amigurumi animals, and then I dispense them to all my friends who are procreating.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's you are not the first crocheter I've known, and everyone I know is very, very very passionate about their crochet.
Very, very. Do not interrupt me when I'm counting. I will slap you senseless.
Look, and that's reasonable. Yeah. So for our final roadshow question, wombat, echidna, platypus, emu, koala, or kangaroo? Which one and why?
Oh my god. So many. Like, okay, now I have thought about this. Love the echidna just because of the waddle. The emu and the just characteristics and personality, but I'm going to throw another one at you.
Yeah.
Has anyone said quokka?
We've had a couple of
We've
quokkas.
had a quokka, okay.
We've had a couple of quokkas. There is a favourite of the West Australians.
Oh yeah, but I saw them and I was like, they are not scared of anything, they're too dumb to be.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to have to go with emu just because they are just the most ridiculous bird. They're not even, you can't even pair them with a flamingo or anything like that. They are 100%, or a cassowary. The cassowary is the other one
Cassowaries are amazing, but they are also angry dinosaurs.
But I feel like if I was a bird, I would be a cassowary. Leave me alone, otherwise I will hurt you.
Yeah, angry dinosaurs.
Angry dinosaurs. So maybe I'll say cassowary.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for joining us on Call to the Bar.
Thanks, Tamsin.
So I'm here in the ANZSIL GSIL workshop for this roadshow episode, and I'm speaking with Joanne. Joanne, do you want to introduce yourself to Call to the Bar listeners and tell us what you're working on and what paper you're presenting here at the workshop?
Hey, I'm Joanne Stagg. I'm currently a PhD student with an amazing supervisor.
Lies. She's awful. I know David's pretty good.
Yeah. And also an academic at Griffith Uni. I'm currently working on, my bigger PhD is a queer judgments project, but today in particular, I'm looking at how across a whole bunch of Western nations, there's become an approach to refugee claims on the status of sexuality and gender that very much rely on stereotyping of queer behaviours for a potential refugee to be legible as a queer person, particularly a gay person or lesbian person, and very much a pressure for surgical modification for trans people, all fitting into certain Western tropes of what it means to be queer. And I'm looking at how, well, firstly, that's unjust, how it replicates certain forms of colonialism, and how we could challenge that with a more queer approach to judging. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, and that kind of builds on the work we did before your PhD together on looking at how human rights courts have treated queer subjects with a heteronormative lens and demanded a heteronormative allegory in order to be legible to the law.
Absolutely, yes.
But I also think that, one of the best contributions of your PhD when it's done, and hopefully this will be out in print soon,
Hopefully.
is your theorising of alternative judgments as a form of fanfic. Do you want to tell us quickly about that?
Yeah, I think I love alternative judgments. I think they're a particularly sharp, critical tool to show the potentials of how judgments could be done differently and how, using existing law, people could come to different outcomes. I theorise them as fan fiction, not only because they really are taking a genre judgments and rewriting them to make a story that the writer finds more palatable than the original, which is what a lot of fan fiction is, but also because fan fiction itself is a surprisingly subversive and powerful genre. There's a whole fan fiction studies area of literature studies, and fan fiction often creates new possibilities for people. It's been very much part of young people's discussions around consent, gender, sexuality, racism, etc., by reimagining a whole bunch of stories in ways that critically examine assumptions around those topics. So I think that alt judgments as fan fiction is not a disparagement of those judgments, but actually recognising the true potential for power that they'd have.
Fantastic. Yeah, I said I'm looking forward to when that article summarising that part of your PhD comes out, because it's really cool. And that's so. When you're not working on these sorts of issues of legal theory and queer lives, what do you like to do to relax and unwind?
Other than trashy novels, I like gardening. I like growing things. I've currently got way too many tomatoes, and my first crop of artichokes have come up, which is exciting. It's all very boring and domestic in my world.
Nothing wrong with that. Tomato crop, I think you should make a barbecue sauce.
Maybe.
Yeah, and so for our final roadshow question, wombat, echidna, platypus, koala, kangaroo or emu? Which one and why?
Oh, that's a hard one. I like the spikiness of the echidna because it keeps people away, and I'm an introvert. But I think I also admire a cousin to the emu, which is the cassowary, which is genuine evidence that birds are dinosaurs, and those murder birds will mess you up if you get between them.
Fantastic. I love a good cassowary. They are angry dinosaurs and fantastic.
And I'm from Queensland, where the cassowaries come from, so you got to admire them.
We won't hold that against you. Thanks so much for joining us on Call to the Bar Roadshow.
Thank you.
And I'm here with Cullen now. Cullen, do you want to introduce yourself to Call to the Bar listeners, even though you've been on the pod before, and tell us what you're working on at the moment and what your paper is that you're presenting here today?
Yeah, fantastic. Hi everyone, my name's Cullen O'Hara. I'm a lecturer at Melbourne Law School. I'm also co-chair with Tamsin of the ANZSIL Gender, Sexuality and International Law Interest Group, and an editor on the Australian Feminist Law Journal. So I'm working on a few different projects at the moment. What I'm presenting on at this workshop is a paper that will eventually form part of an edited collection on feminism's history and international law. And my contribution is basically sketches of alternative international economic legal imaginaries that reflect more of a feminist perspective, drawn from archival work based on different kind of feminist conferences, both official and unofficial, held in the 1970s.
Awesome. So what are the other projects you're working on, since you've got a broad
Yeah,
base
so
of projects?
I mean, the thing that dominates my life at the moment is I'm about to submit my book, my manuscript, to the publisher. So this is a book based on my PhD thesis. The book's entitled Consensus in International Law, Critical History, Queer Reimaginings. And it essentially undertakes a critical exploration of the idea of consensus in international law, focusing on a range of different areas, from international trade law and the World Trade Organization to the European Court of Human Rights' use of the concept of European consensus. And I'm essentially trying to understand how this concept's been mobilised, especially to lend authority to particular ways of thinking about international law, and also to deauthorise alternative and diverse and dissenting viewpoints.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to reading that one. When you're not thinking about all of these issues of international law, what are you doing to enjoy yourself and unwind, apart from, looking after Ori?
So I don't know, I feel like I don't have that many diverse interests, and the last time I was on the podcast I said swimming, and it really hasn't progressed much from that. But, in addition to swimming, I like good food, wine, travel. I like the rain as well. I was just out there. It's drizzling
a good reason
bit. Yeah.
To be in Melbourne then.
Yeah, no, I really like the rain, especially when it's not too cold like today, and it's so nice.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. And for our last roadshow question, echidna, platypus, wombat, emu, koala, or kangaroo? Which one and why?
A platypus, it is so queer. I'm just all about wild embracing of kind of bodily diversity that is the platypus.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the pod for this roadshow.
Thanks for having me.
I am here still at the GSIL workshop, and I'm here with Carlos. Carlos, do you want to introduce yourself and let our listeners know what it is that you're working on, and what paper you presented here at the workshop?
Yeah, thank you, Tamsin. Yes, my name is Carlos Celada. I'm originally from Peru. I'm a lawyer, and I'm a law professor as well, and litigator in international human rights law. I came all the way from the UK to Australia to present part of my doctoral dissertation, a chapter on the feminization of the models of adjudication used by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights in cases of sexual violence against women. It's part of my doctoral dissertation, which speaks about sexual violence against men.
Yeah, so you're looking specifically within the Inter-American court system. Do you want to just, for our listeners, very briefly kind of sum up what you've kind of found about sexual violence and the Inter-American court system generally?
Yeah, so the Inter-American system has been at the forefront when it comes to discuss cases on sexual violence. But what I found that it was never, constructed a history of what really happened, and also to kind of have a more critical view of how the court and the commission eventually decided all these cases. So what I found is there's a clear difference when the court or the commission refer to the type of victim. For example, when the victims are women, it's pretty obvious that there is no much reluctance of labeling the events as sexual violence or using the different categories, rape, forced nudity, whereas when the victims are men, there's this tendency that the court has to avoid labeling this as sexual violence and reframing any type of allegation of those type as allegations of torture, which is very ironic because in the cases of women, torture has been used as a device to give light to these events, to make the claim of sexual violence more powerful. whereas in the case of men has been used to conceal the sexual nature of what happened with all these men survivors and victims.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I can't remember the name of the author, but I did read a really interesting paper, and I've cited it in my work on Security Council and conflict-based sexual violence, looking at how for men who are victims of sexual violence, they are the ones who are shamed and tainted with this idea of becoming homosexual, and
that's
as a shame element that goes with how we frame.
That's probably
men.
Sandesh Sivakumaran.
Yes, I couldn't remember the name. I couldn't remember his name, but it was an excellent paper.
Yes.
Yeah.
A pioneer, actually, on giving voice to what was happening with men and boys in such instances of armed conflicts and sexual violence incidents in general.
Yeah. So when you're not at Oxford working on your PhD or here in Melbourne presenting, or when you're not working on international law, what do you like to do to relax?
I do two things. I drink coffee.
Yep.
I love coffee, and I have to say that I found in Australia good coffee, which I normally cannot find in the UK.
You're in the UK. There is no good coffee.
Correct. Yeah. And also I go to the cinema. What I love about that's something good about being in the UK. You have a lot of independent chains where you can watch movies from the 40s, 50s, 60s in a big screen, something that is not necessarily something that happens in Latin America. So that's something that actually relaxes me a lot, and something that I can do for myself. I just enjoy the feeling of just being sitting down there and watching a big screen.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic, and something that you'd share with your fellow Peruvian and friend of mine, Alonso Gamendi.
Yes,
yeah.
Good friend Alonso.
Alonso's fantastic. So for our final Call to the Bar Roadshow episode question, so wombat, platypus, echidna, kangaroo, koala or emu, which one and why?
I think kangaroo.
Yeah?
Because I don't know, I feel sort of a sense of protection, nurture, which speaks a lot about the type of feminism that I try to convey in my personal life, but also as a lawyer and someone who teaches international law. So kangaroo speaks a lot to me.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for coming on this Call to the Bar Roadshow episode.
Thank you, Tamsin.
And so I'm here with Andrea. Do you want to introduce yourself to our Call to the Bar listeners and let us know what you're working on and what you presented here at the GSIL workshop?
Yeah, sure. My name is Andrea. I'm a PhD candidate at Laura Godau University. Today I present at the Reproductive Justice panel. Presented my research project about economic disparity and criminalization of abortion in Tocantins, state in Brazil.
So tell us more about what have you come up with your research so far on reproductive justice and abortion criminalization?
Sure. So actually, I'm really kind of early in my research. I don't have much to present right now. I just presented a very general context about the state of Tocantins and how abortion and criminalization of abortion laws are in Brazil at this moment. But I'm really excited because in a few weeks I'm going to Brazil to do my field work. I'll be doing interviews with women, healthcare providers, and people who works with access to legal abortion.
Yeah.
So probably next year I'm going to have a lot of more to present. So I'm really excited about that.
That will be fantastic for our listeners because it's an international audience. What is the state of the laws on abortion in Brazil, and how does that compare to kind of international standards and expectations?
So right now abortion is criminalized in Brazil. We have three exceptions. One is when the women have life-threatening. Usually it's really, they don't accept like mental health reasons. It's just really like the person is almost dying. The other one is in rape case, and the third exception is anencephalic fetus. This one was it was an exception that wasn't in the law. It came from the High Court decision.
So it's kind of recent.
Yeah, okay. So when you're not working on these issues of Brazilian and international law, what do you like to do to relax?
I like reading a lot.
Do you have a preferred genre or author?
Yes, I'm reading a lot of romanticy right now, and I also listen a lot of music. So it's basically what I do.
Fantastic! I love a good romanticy.
Yes,
I love a good romanticy fiction. So I'm here with you on that one. No, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I know. No, it's a fun way to escape reality, especially when you're researching such emotionally demanding topic.
Oh, absolutely. So for a final roadshow question, wombat, echidna, platypus, kangaroo, koala, or emu? Which one and why?
Koala.
Why the koala?
Because I've been here for 2 years and I really want to see one, and I didn't have the chance yet. So I'm still trying to, see one cute koala.
Look, that's completely reasonable. I have only seen a couple in the wild, and I've lived here for most of my 40-something years, but they are super cute.
Yeah, I've been invited for a friend to his beach house, and I spent 3 days there, and he was like, oh, we always have a koala near here. I was just like, I'm really excited about it. And then the day I left, he messaged me saying, hey, so the koala just showed up. I was waiting for you to leave apparently.
Oh, no.
Oh, you are ripped off.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to me for Call to the Bar.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm here still at the ANZSIL GSIL workshop for this roadshow episode, and I'm speaking with Tanya. Tanya, do you want to introduce yourself and let our listeners know what you're working on and what you presented at the workshop?
Sure. So my name's Tanya Penovich. I'm an associate professor at Deakin Law School with the wonderful Tamsin, and I've been at the workshop talking about the co-optation of the language of human rights and international law to undermine gender equality and particularly reproductive rights. So looking at the re-engineering of human rights by the religious right and the far right to inculcate a very different picture to the picture of human rights jurisprudence that we know.
Yeah, do you want to kind of give, for our listeners who may not be across this, give a very quick snapshot of, as you said, how they've co-opted this idea of defending people and defending women to advance a fairly restrictive and misogynistic view of the world?
Sure. Well, one of the things I spoke about was the United States right now and its statement at the 2025 Commission on the Status of Women, and the way that the United States is going to protect women in Trump's America is by protecting them from dangerous gender ideology, which threatens them all. It's also going to curb immigration to protect women and girls from dangerous migrants. And the other way is through an instrument of soft law called the Geneva Consensus Declaration. Now, this is something that the US promulgated, and there was a signing ceremony in 2020, just before the 2020 US election, where the US joined with around 31 other largely illiberal states to launch this soft law instrument, drawing on international law ostensibly to protect women's health, but denying a right to abortion. Following a very cis-heteronormative patriarchal model too.
Yeah, well, when no one with any kind of understanding of what's happening globally would be surprised that the US is going to, ostensibly protect women by being anti-abortion, anti-trans and anti-migrant. That seems kind of par for the course for the current regime over there.
I must say that the stance of protecting women by curbing migration, it it's just, yeah, I mean, it's a trope, but it did somewhat surprise me that it featured in the US official statement to the Commission on the Status of Women, but there you have it. That summarises where things are at right now.
And from memory, Sen Raj has done some really interesting work on looking at that kind of trope of the violent migrant and debunking that for any of our listeners are interested. So when you're not working on these issues of law, what do you like to do to relax?
Well, I have a lot of family responsibilities and quite a large family, but I do like to hang out with my beautiful dog, who unfortunately passed away. I've had a difficult time lately,
I'm sorry. That's really awful.
No, it's been quite difficult. But I am actually travelling, doing a little trip overseas with my son, and so I like to spend time with my children. I've got 4 of them, and they're all great. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
And for our last roadshow question, we have echidna, wombat, platypus, koala, kangaroo or emu. Which one and why?
It's such a hard question because I do love animals. My daughters do say that I'm to blame for their veganism because of my love for animals. But I think that given that I have to choose one, I would say platypus, because they are such a precious and unique creature. And you really must see one. I've had the privilege of seeing them in the wild.
I've seen a few in the river near where I walk my dogs, so yeah.
Yes, I've seen them walking my dog too, and I can't tear myself away from them. They are just so uniquely special and wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining us for this roadshow episode of Called to the Bar.
My pleasure, Tamsin. Lovely to speak with you.